Hello, I'm Eddie Blanco, broker of Stratwell, here to share some information about what's going on in the real estate market. Get a lot of interest on that. I hear a lot of hype on what's happening in real estate. There's headlines in the national news, what's going on with our economy. So I wanted to bring some information on that level, just talk to you kind of straight up so you get a perspective that, from my perspective. So everybody wants to know, is it good or is it bad? And really quantifying it that simply is just not realistic. That's not my style. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a mixture of everything, right? So that you can decide for yourself, you know, where do you think it is? It's probably somewhere in the spectrum, right? It's not everything's always good or always bad, somewhere in the middle, right? So let's dissect that information. Let's start with national headline. The National Association of Realtors came out with a stat that said that home sales are down almost 18% in the South. What's that mean for you? Really, it just means that the number of sales is down 17%. Well, that doesn't mean the home values are down 17%. Well, that makes sense. People are at home, concerned about catching corona, not so much about shopping for homes. So it's not too crazy to think that numbers are that low. In fact, I was expecting lower numbers than that. Or higher numbers, I should say, right? Where home sales have dropped even more. But the fact is, home sales have come down some, but not as bad as it could be, quite frankly. The other national headline is this whole mortgage forbearance thing. We actually created a video on mortgage forbearance and gets really into the details of it and explains mortgage forbearance in a very simple way. So I encourage you to check out that video. While you're there, I encourage you to subscribe to our page, like this video, and comment below. Give us some feedback on what you think about the video. Doing these things will help YouTube know that you like this kind of content. When we post videos, you'll get more of this information and you'll hear from other people about these topics. So take a moment to do that when you get a chance. Going into the whole national news about mortgage forbearance and default. Default numbers are not showing what is happening on the default side, because when a person is in mortgage forbearance, those numbers are actually not considered part of the default. So even though they're not making their mortgage payment, they're considered on time. Well, they're not. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how many of these mortgage forbearance people convert over into paying again and how many end up going into default. So that's going to take about 3 to 6 months to see where those numbers are. But like I said, if you're following us on social media and through YouTube, you'll keep a good pulse of what's happening in that area. And if you have any questions that I'm not covering, feel free to comment below. Another national headline is unemployment. The unemployment numbers are staggeringly high. 30 million people have filed for unemployment. Now, one of the questions I had, and I was looking for more information on, and I'm going to find the information on, is whether or not those unemployment numbers include a whole slew of people who before weren't being able to considered as unemployed. So, for example, now with the new CARE Act, people who are 1099, realtors, Uber drivers, maybe cleaning people, different like gig businesses who are on a 1099 as opposed to a W-2, so they're independent contractors, those people are now able to file for unemployment. So those high unemployment numbers may be considering these people who weren't before being considered. So I don't know if we can compare the 30 million today to the numbers 3 years ago or 2 years ago or back in 2008, because these unemployment numbers, do they include all these independent contractors who before weren't able to file for unemployment? So that's an interesting data point that I'm going to look into further and share that information with you. So definitely we want to look at unemployment as a number, because really that will have an impact on home sale values down the road. The question is, are these unemployment numbers going to continue once the economy gets restarted? So a lot of these people who are unemployed are people who work for businesses who are currently forced to be closed. So as those businesses start to become reopened, those get reemployed, people start visiting, business gets back to normal, things get stabilized, and hopefully we could look back at this as a blip in our economy history and not as a beginning of a landslide. And I'm on the optimistic side. I think that numbers will, as the economy gets reopened, the numbers will start becoming positive again. And, one of the indicators for that is the stock market, right? So Wall Street is confident that our economy will bounce back, and those Wall Street numbers have been actually pretty good, a lot better than I thought they'd be. So that's a positive, and I'm optimistic about that. Let's bring it down local. Today, the governor allowed for businesses to reopen in Florida. At the local level, counties and municipalities may have restrictions on businesses opening, but the state has removed the restrictions they had on the whole entire state. The only counties that aren't allowed to be open today are Miami-Dade, Broward, and West Palm Beach, which are the counties that have the high numbers in the COVID-19 cases. And they're the most densely populated parts of Florida. So what we're going to see happening here soon is that the Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach will be opening at some point here soon. We're expecting about 10 days. In fact, I'm very involved locally in that process, and we created a whole video talking about the in-depths on how that's being done, what's being considered in terms of the rules and regulations that are involved in that decision-making process with County Mayor Jimenez, etc. So I encourage you to check out that video if you want to know about what it's going to look like to kickstart our economy here in South Florida. But I expect that those things will happen sooner than later, and I'm optimistic about that, and I wanted to share that with you. So we've got the Florida economy open back up, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach opening up here soon, probably within the next 10 days or so. So then what about the real estate numbers? So I looked at the numbers in April and compared them to last year, the same time. And actually, the number of sales is way down, about 50%. So that's a staggering number. So that's kind of where I thought the numbers would be more like. And they are, at least here in South Florida. Looking at Dade and Broward, they're about 50% of what they were the same time last year. But here's the good news. Sales values are up when you compare them to last year. So in Miami-Dade County, the median sale price was around $305, and now it's closer to $330. So those numbers are up. That's good. The other number that's down is the days on market, which is good when days on market is down. Just slightly, but it's actually, in April, sales were faster in 2020 than they were in 2019. So that's a good indicator. Here's the thing to consider. Supply and demand. What we don't want to see is sales going down and inventory going up. What's happened with COVID-19 is the sellers have said, I'm not putting my house on the market, and buyers have said, I'm not buying right now. So both are down, so that's good because it keeps the supply and demand in balance. And as long as supply and demand are in balance, value should remain equal. What we'll be watching over time is, will the inventory increase and the demand to buy stay low? Here's some things to think about nationally. In 2012, the real estate business changed a lot. Wall Street got into the business of owning single-family homes. Actually, it started earlier than 2012, but it really ramped up 12 and 13. And still today, there's real estate companies that have purchased 70, 80, 100,000 homes that they have in their inventory, and they're holding them as rentals. These guys stopped buying about 3 years ago, for the most part. And they're just waiting on the sidelines for real estate inventory to go up and demand not to be there and values to trickle down. And as soon as the market starts to trickle down, those guys will be in here buying again. So I expect that to be a stabilizer for the market in the real estate world. So all these numbers are really cool. A lot of things to think about. Everything is changing every moment. What you can count on from me is to give you the straight answers as I see it, call it as I see it. I don't know all the answers, but at least you can get from me my honest, true forward opinion about what's happening. Next month, I'll be covering the same topic, going over the national news, what's happening in real estate on a local level, getting into some of the data, not bore you to death with data, but get you some core numbers that you need to be watching. So check us out next month on this same topic. Again, if you'd like, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and comment below. We'd be glad to give you more information. Say, Ed, you didn't cover this data point. What about this data point? I'll be glad to cover it next time. I appreciate you watching.